Check, check, check.
Check. Another. Check, check one. Check one. Sumina, check one. Check, check one. Check one.
Check one. Check one. Check one. Check one. Check two. Check two.
Okay, Hare.
So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for us to be here in Colombo this evening. A group of us have come down from Kandy. We're very impressed that, as far as we understand, one day in Kandy, the next day in Colombo is the norm for you guys, and we're embracing that norm, and very happy to be here this evening before driving back up. Grasping nitrogen. You might ask the title, grasping. Grasping is like grasping something invisible because 78% of the air is nitrogen. How do we grasp it? But grasping also means grasping the challenge of nitrogen. And finally, grasping can mean to understand. I grasp it. Finally, I got it. We hope by the end of this evening, you will get it too. Why work on this substance? I'll not say any more, but introduce Dr. Jasinger is, of course, needs no introduction here as your Secretary for the Ministry of Environment to chair the event. Dr. Jasinger.
Thank you, Professor Mark. Good evening to all of you. Honorable Nasir Ahmed, the Minister of Environment, Sri Lanka, Mrs. Rakaya Katon, Director General, newly appointed Director General of SACEP, Professor Mark Sutton, and the expert team that came with you, and Ministry officials, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, delegates. It is both a pleasure and an honor to welcome all of you to the side event on grasping nitrogen, accelerating action on nitrogen for environment, climate and economy, and to deliver the opening remarks at this side event. I'm inspired by the leadership of Honorable Minister of Environment, Engineer Nasir Ahmed, has shown in spearheading this event. We were pleased to have you here today with us, and it is a strong indication of your commitment to sustainable nitrogen management. Minister of Environment of Sri Lanka identified the need for working on nitrogen immediately after the resolution put forward by India at the 4th session of United Nations Environment Assembly in 2019. Minister of Environment then sought consent from line ministries such as Agriculture, Plantation and Transport to initiate joint work on nitrogen. Accordingly, an inter-ministerial task force and an intra-ministerial task force action group and expert group were appointed to work on nitrogen in 2019. However, a guidance system for governments to implement UNIA 4 nitrogen resolution was not in place in 2019. Considering Sri Lanka's high diplomatic success at UNIA 4, UNEP partnered with Sri Lanka to launch the first UN global campaign on Nitrogen for Life. Event was held in Sri Lanka in 2019 under the patronage of Deputy Executive Director of UNEP. The Colombo Declaration and the status report of Sri Lanka on national nitrogen assessment were salient outcomes of that event. The Colombo Declaration was supported by 15 countries directly, and many others followed its footsteps, including the European Union, United Kingdom, India, UNEP and FAO. Ladies and gentlemen, based on the objectives of UNIA 4 resolution and ambitions of the Colombo Declaration, Sri Lanka proposed the UNIA 5.2 resolution to prepare a way forward for the second phase of actions, accelerating national actions among member states in the reaching up to UNIA 6. The resolution consists of very important elements in addressing nitrogen pollution, including a global goal to significantly reduce the nitrogen waste by 2030 and beyond, developing action plans and finalizing a modality for intergovernmental coordination of different but related sectors of sustainable nitrogen management in the run-up to UNIA 6 in 2024 with the support of UNEP. Accordingly, my ministry has already taken necessary steps to develop national action plan for sustainable nitrogen management. We have already established interagency committee for sustainable nitrogen management and subcommittees to work on development of nitrogen action plan for SNE. In order to initiate a policy dialogue on nitrogen waste and management and provide insights to develop the National Action Plan for Sustainable Nitrogen Management, the Ministry of Environment and University of Peradeniya collaboratively organized the first national symposium on sustainable nitrogen management. In the last day of the symposium, interactive workshop was held to identify sector actions and measures to contribute to nitrogen action plans on sustainable nitrogen management. Meanwhile, University of Peradeniya of Sri Lanka, with the support of South Asian Nitrogen Hub, has prepared the National Nitrogen Policy Report for Sri Lanka. It highlights the issues and challenges around nitrogen pollution and management of Sri Lanka with recommendations for actions. With the view of reducing the nitrogen waste in agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture Sri Lanka has introduced several measures such as to promote the production of use of organic fertilizer, use of granular urea, split application of nitrogen fertilizers, encouraging slow release third generation nitrogen fertilizer, use of leaf color chart based urea, application and use of urea enriched burnt paddy husk. As a country, there is much work to be done in the future to have nitrogen by 2030. For that, we need international support, both technical and financial. Hope this side event will provide us good opportunity to share our experience towards sustainable nitrogen management and how we can move forward as a region. Of course, we have come a long way in sustainable nitrogen management, and I think a lot of countries have shown interest, and also we see that the South Asia is leading the way. So this is a very encouraging sign, and also we are happy that the Sri Lanka and other South Asian countries have given the leadership during past 5-6 years. So therefore, I think we should be able to work together, for further sustainable nitrogen management, especially being agricultural countries and also with livestock. So before I conclude my speech, once again, I warmly welcome all of you to this side event, and I wish all the success and deliberations. Thank you.
With that, thank you so much, Dr. Jayasinha, and happy now to pass on for our key address from Mr. Nasir Ahmed as Minister of Environment. Minister, please.
Dr. Anil Jayasinha, Secretary to the Ministry of Environment, Mrs. Rakaya Katon, Director General SAKIP, Professor Mark Sutton, Director, UKRI GCRF, South Asian Nitrogen, experts, delegates, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I think I was listening to Dr. Anil Jayasinha, and generally when he delivers a speech, he is very active. Since the last whole week, they are running from day and night. Maybe he looks very tired. And I can see all my ministry staff also extremely tired in this bringing this, working day and night for this event to make it a successful event. Anyway, so it's a privilege and a pleasure for me to be here for the side event on accelerating action on nitrogen for environment, climate, and economy at UNEP Asia Pacific Regional Forum. Nitrogen pollution is one of the major global environment issues in this country. Multiple sectors, including agriculture, transportation, industry, and energy sectors, have increased their share of nitrogen pollution and related greenhouse gas emissions due to growing anthropogenic demands. A number of environmental problems caused by nitrogen waste emitted into air, water, soil, and ecosystems by our production systems are developing into serious issues that must be urgently addressed with strong policy interventions. At the 5th United Nations Environment Assembly in Nairobi, UN member states from around the world have agreed to accelerate efforts to tackle the global nitrogen challenge by 2030 and beyond. The resolution on sustainable nitrogen management has been proposed by Sri Lanka and was co-sponsored by Brazil, Maldives, Pakistan, and Uganda, championing the cause for sustainable nitrogen use on planet Earth. The resolution was adopted by UN member states in March 2022. The UNIA Resolution 5.2 adopted takes the next steps towards these goals, agreeing to encourage member states to accelerate actions to significantly reduce nitrogen waste globally by 2030 and beyond through the improvement of sustainable nitrogen management. As a proponent of the UNEA 5.2 resolution on sustainable nitrogen management, Ministry of Environment is responsible for providing insight to develop the National Action Plan for Sustainable Nitrogen Management with the collaboration of our stakeholders. My ministry has already taken necessary steps to develop National Action Plan for Sustainable Nitrogen Management, established National Expert Committee on Sustainable Nitrogen Management, established Interagency Committee and subcommittees on Sustainable Nitrogen Management, conducted first National Symposium, as Dr. said, on Sustainable Nitrogen Management. The year 2030 is fast reaching. As national focal points for the sustainable nitrogen management, we need urgent actions to halve nitrogen waste globally. However, we may not be able to achieve this target without the support and cooperation of all stakeholders, including the government sector, private sector, academia, researchers, and international organizations. As Dr. mentioned, even for us, it's becoming more and more difficult because of our present financial situation. So therefore, as our secretary mentioned, we seek the international support for us to continue our good work that we have started and to ensure that at least the country proposed is established and proven to the world that we reduce by 2030 the nitrogen by half. I do hope this side event can be considered as an opportunity for international collaboration to halve nitrogen use by 2023. Though this side event, various countries and organizations could express their support for this process. I am sure together we may be able to halve nitrogen waste by 2030. I wish every success for this side event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'm happy to call to the stage now Ms. Rakaya Katon, Director General of the South Asia Cooperative Environment Programme.
His Excellency Nasir Ahmed, Honorable Minister, Ministry of Environment, Sri Lanka, Dr. Anil Garsinge, Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Sri Lanka, Professor Mark and his team, experts, distinguished guests, representatives from SunEdge and other organizations, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening to you all. Thank you for gathering here today for this crucial side event at the UNEP Asia Pacific Regional Meeting. I am honored to stand before you as the Director General of the South Asia Cooperative Environment Program. And it's my pleasure to address this distinguished gathering on a matter of utmost importance, grasping nitrogen. Nitrogen, the silent force shaping the character of life itself, is both a life sustainer and a challenge we must confront. Nitrogen is not only fundamental to the building blocks of life, but it is also a key player in the global ecosystem. The efficiency of its use, however, leaves much to be desired. A staggering 80% of nitrogen imports are lots of pollution and emission, posing a systematic challenge across all phases of our economy. Today, we find ourselves at a critical juncture, grasping with the consequences of our actions on the nitrogen cycle. SAKEP, in partnerships with the GCRF South Asian Nitrogen Hub, is committed to addressing this challenge hand-on. Our collaboration, backed by the UKRI Global Challenge Research Fund, is a testament to the power of international cooperation in the face of global environmental challenges. The work undertaken by SAKEP, SANEJ, and the International Nitrogen Management System has already made significant contributions to UNEA resolutions 5/14 and 5/2, as well as the Colombo Declaration on Sustainable Nitrogen Management. Moreover, being a leading signatory to the Colombo Declaration on Sustainable Nitrogen Management, Sri Lankan government has expressed its interest to join the global community in having nitrogen waste by 2030. However, as we convene today, we acknowledge the need to go further in grasping the nitrogen challenge. Surging fertilizer prices in 2022 pose a threat to global food security. The economic opportunities lie in reducing nitrogen waste, not just to increase food production, but also curb pollution. A dedication effort to have nitrogen waste could save the world between $100 to $300 billion. It is not just call for action, it is a call for nitro finance, a mobilization of resources dedicated to reducing the waste of valuable nitrogen resources. This includes actions that instill confidence in the most crucial measures across the Asia-Pacific region on the opportunities, risks, and priorities surrounding nitrogen management. In our pursuit of understanding and confronting the profound challenges posed by the nitrogen, and today's mission is clear. We stand united to urgency to address the human disturbance of nitrogen cycle. Our progress showcased in the implementation of UNEA resolutions 14/4/14 and 5/2 emphasizes the need to have seamless intergovernmental coordination on nitrogen policies and national action plans. Looking ahead, we underscore the imperative for a new resolution on sustainable nitrogen management at UNEA 6. This vision includes establishment of intergovernmental nitrogen coordination mechanism, harmonization national action plans, mobilizing nitro finance for sustainable development, and navigating emerging risks tied to use green ammonia. In essence, our collective effort is not just a response to scientific challenge, it is a commitment to shaping a sustainable future of our planet. As we embark on this journey to grasp nitrogen, let us remember that the choices we make today will echo through the corridors of time. It is not just about protecting our environment, it is about securing a sustainable future for generations to come. Together, let us accelerate our actions on nitrogen for environment, climate, and economy. Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Honourable Minister, Secretary Jasinga, Director General, colleagues, we stand in a lift You've often heard the story, if you have a minister in a lift, what can you convey between the ground floor and his office? Not much, so you better be quick. And I just understand, in fact, due to changing arrangements, Honourable Minister will have to go to another event shortly. So how quick can I be to tell you that nitrogen is really important? Have we all heard of carbon? Of course. You get carbon with your breakfast cereal, carbon footprint everywhere, and yet the world has not yet really heard of nitrogen. Sri Lanka has been a leading country to lead a world resolution at the United Nations Environment Assembly with 192 countries and get them to agree is a real champion thing for Sri Lanka to have done. And India, of course, led the first resolution. But the way is forward. What is the need going ahead? Those resolutions are small steps. If you look at the United Nations Environment Assembly, you look at plastics, every resolution, every assembly, another step forward. It takes time to get there, it takes commitment. And I'm so happy to see that Sri Lanka has followed up that commitment. The moment the resolution was done, Dr. Jayasinha was there pushing. We've got to get everybody working together across our ministries. We've heard about the cross-ministry, cross-agency programs you're doing, getting everybody working together. And I can tell you that the rest of the world is looking and watching you, Sri Lanka. But this is also Asia-Pacific meeting, here from across Asia-Pacific, and you face massive nitrogen challenges. I said we would talk about grasping nitrogen. Well, let's look at it this way. 78% of every breath we take is nitrogen. And we ignore it. We forget about that nitrogen is right in us. Every DNA molecule is nitrogen. The hemoglobin of our blood, nitrogen. Chlorophyll in the plants is nitrogen. It's just everywhere. It's even more vital than carbon. If we think of carbon as the skeleton of life, it's nitrogen that gives the diversity, the character, the DNA, all of these molecules. Yet, as the Director General has said, 80% is wasted. That's a massive resource. It's a waste of money, and it's a waste for the environment. Now, if we're going to take action, we need to mobilize people, need to motivate them. And let's just take the money first, because the question is, can we afford to take action? It's hard work taking action. The economy is tight. Let's turn it around. Can we afford not to take action? Because when the fertilizer price tripled in 2022, and you're trying to afford a fertilizer subsidy to support your farmers, and the price goes up massively, and when so much percentage is wasted, if less is wasted, the farmers can have more confidence on the existing resources, the organic resources, recycling, and the costs can be reduced. So we are not talking about reducing fertilizer inputs, not directly. We're talking about reducing the waste of the resource. And if we waste less, less is needed, and we meet the food security goals. So I'm going to introduce in a minute two speakers that are firstly looking at the South Asia roadmap for sustainable nitrogen management, Professor Ramesh Ramachandran, what is happening in South Asia, and secondly, to talk from Dr. Tariq Aziz from Pakistan, who is looking to follow up the lead from Sri Lanka in a new resolution for sustainable nitrogen management in Nairobi in February 2024. 4 key points why care about nitrogen for that resolution. The first is we still have not yet got an intergovernmental cooperation mechanism for getting all the air convention, the climate convention, the biodiversity convention, the member states working together. Work is beginning to grow on that through the UNEP Nitrogen Working Group. There's already 78 member states with national focal points. So it's moving forward, but how to go beyond that, how to make it durable. The 2 resolutions that went before called for consideration in 2024. Can they actually reach agreement on the way forward? The next one is the national action plans. You're already pushing forward on that, but agreement needs to be on how much do you want to harmonize and share between your countries so that a degree of harmonization you can all benefit from. Although I suspect that countries don't want to make anything too rigid, but be flexible. The third is the finance, nitro finance. So we needed to invent a new word. You've heard of climate finance. Now we're talking about nitro finance. Nitro, remember, it means two things. One is nitrogen, but you've heard of nitro, if you have a surfboard, nitro written on your surfboard. Why is nitro written on your surfboard? Because you're going to go faster. Originally, this was due to putting nitrous oxide in engines for super fast acceleration. So nitro becomes super fast acceleration. We would like to see acceleration of finance for work on nitrogen. The world at 2022 prices is wasting 600 billion US dollars per year worth of nitrogen resource. If we can invest to save that, you can see how much potential there is. So investment for saving, and there's a huge amount to save. And the last point is ammonia energy. The world is looking to decarbonize. As part of decarbonizing, to start to use ammonia as a fuel, ammonia as a nitrogen compound. Instead of making ammonia for a fertilizer, making it as a fuel, green ammonia from solar power, for example, already happened. A solar power from Australia, put in the ship, drive it to Japan, and I understand they've already demonstrated that you can burn this at scale in a power station. This is an amazing opportunity ahead, but with risks, and that resolution needs to look at the environmental risks. So with that, thank you so much for joining us, Minister. We realize you have to go, but we're going to continue the discussion and look forward with the food afterwards, which is being prepared outside, so bear with us, to take the next steps forward. And of course, I'm not from Asia Pacific, but ultimately the discussion will be for you and our colleagues here to take forward. Thank you. So with that, we're going to pass over to Professor Ramesh Ramachandran to speak. I took his slot before because we were just rearranging, but he's going to tell us now about the development of work on a South Asia roadmap for sustainable nitrogen management.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Honorable Minister, Honorable Secretary is there, Director General Kept, Professor Mark Sutton, and my colleagues from Pakistan and Maldives, distinguished delegates and participants. I just wanted to highlight, we have been working on the South Asian Nitrogen Hub project. This project is almost, we are coming to the end of this project, maybe another 6 months, and nearly 40 institutions worked in all the countries from South Asia, along with the UK scientists. And a huge amount of science have been produced. The one thing which, with the scientists which are produced along with the policy makers, is the roadmap for the sustainable nitrogen management, which we would like to highlight because this is a huge document. I just wanted to highlight in about 8 to 10 minutes the major achievements and major roadmap which is done here. Why South Asia? I think South Asia is one of the hotspot in nitrogen, and we have a population of about the entire South Asia 1.9 billion, which is nearly 25% of the global population. And we also have the land area is less than 5%, 4.5% of the world land area. And in terms of environmental pressure, we have these severe environmental pressures. One of the key is the nitrogen, which the ineffective management of nitrogen is the major issue, which the earlier speakers are also highlighted. And the emission increases. You can see that the ammonia increases by 36%. The NOx emission has increased about 107%, and the nitrous oxide emission has increased about 36%. And also what we do look at the policies for the entire South Asia. We have a lot of policies. It's all sector-wise fragmented. We have nearly about more than 1,000 policies in the whole South Asia region. But we look at this landscape in a very coordinated way. And that is how that now I'm happy to see that Sri Lanka is also doing the interministerial coordination among these policies. And then we look at the coherent policy framework, and also 2 resolutions which I already talked about, and this resolution really catching up. I think many countries also joining, more than 78 countries already on board. What is the key elements from this roadmap? One is we looked at the background. and this is mainly facilitated by the SACUP and prepared for the SACUP for the South Asian Nitrogen Hub. And this is a joint report on South Asia nitrogen policy landscape. And the scope of this study is to involve all the 8 member countries. This is not only in one individual, all the 8 members is involved. And the vision, I just broken down the vision that we want to have a sustainable nitrogen future. We should have an healthy environment. We should have a climate resilient society. We should have an economically effective nitrogen benefits for all. And the mission for that is to promote national coordination, and we should encourage regional cooperation, and we also catalyze coordinated actions on governments, and also involve all stakeholders, including the scientific community. And we always look for the science-based evidence for the policy, which is what we are currently doing, and also look at the environmental protection and natural resources conservation through the efficient nitrogen use. So with that, we have a few major objectives. One is to reduce the adverse effect of nitrogen pollution. We look at the efficiency of the nitrogen use. Right now we are only 20%. We should see how we can efficiently use at least 30%. Improve food supply, reduce food wastage, and also how do you save by doing this by save money on this. And look at the innovative sustainable nitrogen management, and also look at the adequate means of implementation all these policies. So we do have, like the SDGs, some target, about 17 targets have been set, and it is divided into few sectors. First one, we looked at the shared targets across society. So the details are given in the roadmap to highlight. One is to look at the reduced nitrogen pollution from all sources. This is actually based on the Kunming-Montreal Protocol, which clearly says on the target 7 that by 50% of the pollution has to be reduced by 2030. And our roadmap is also clear that we are going towards in the direction. Incentives for the sustainable nitrogen management, and also look at the benefits of action identified, improved public awareness. Until the plastic, unlike the plastics, the nitrogen awareness is very difficult because it is everywhere. It is in water, in air, in soil, and the biodiversity. And so it is very difficult for the common people to understand the importance of nitrogen, the impact it has on the climate change. I think the awareness plays an important role. And now we will move on to the sectors. Take sector-wise, we look at the agriculture sector. We looked at the nitrogen use efficiency, the reduced nitrogen pollution from agriculture sector, and also some of the smart livestock farming, and also look at the more area under sustainable cropping systems. Then the other sector, which is more important, is on this transport, because we only talk about the agriculture sector. The transport, the energy, and industry also very major role in this one. We have a few targets on that. Look at the NOx emission, particularly in big cities like for example New Delhi. We have the huge amount of NOx emission from the air pollution. The transport and industry plays a major role. Increase the share of clean energy, which we have been increasing, for example, 5% up to 20% of the clean energy. We are able to come up. I think this is where we have to continue, both in terms of solar and offshore wind energy, and more recently we are looking at the offshore wind energy potential as well. And also reduce energy related to the nitrogen emissions, and regional cooperation. That is what we are looking at. At least the South Asia region, we are much far ahead and compared to the rest of the world in terms of the regional cooperation. The wastewater is also plays a very important role in the nitrogen, where we look at the improved wastewater management, because nearly most of our countries, 70 to 80% of the water, we are letting into the sea without much of treatment. That we have to look at the improvement of those and establish standards for nutrients. Each country, for example, we do have the standards, so we like to have these standards in place, and reduce nitrogen pollution from coastal and marine sources and activities. So, for example, the more eutrophic zones, the dead zones are increasing, the algal blooms are increasing. Right now, on the global scale, about 500 eutrophic zones are there, and this is increasing because we had the health of the ocean is the most important subject. With I think already Jeff has taken on a global scale, and in the next cycle we'll be having more work on this one. Then the other one is the consumption, the dietary change, the more meat consumption, how to reduce the food waste, both in terms of the waste which are putting it, in terms of the waste loss, also we look at. And then the municipal solid waste and recycling, reduce the emissions from the organic residues. I think these are all the few major targets we set, and the timelines also we said that we will say that the individual countries can also come up based on their individual countries' needs. They can set up that target and then see how far they can go ahead, and this definitely will help them to come up through this ACAP. They will be able to come up some sort of a policy which they will be able to forward in this one. And in this roadmap, not only we have given the targets, we also see what type of the key actions for each of this then we have to highlight. And because of the lack of time, I'm not going into those key actions. So for the shared actions across the society, there are a few important aspects we have highlighted. Similarly, for the key actions, what you have to do for the agriculture sector, important actions, key points have been highlighted here. And similarly, for the transport industry sector as well as the wastewater management, we also highlighted some of the very key actions. The individual country can look at this one and how they can move forward in this direction. Similarly, we also looked at the waste, recycling, resources, residues in terms of consumption, in terms of public awareness, and then exchange of knowledge and best partnership. And overall, the partnership plays an important role in this one. So with this, what is our monitoring? This is not only just giving the target and the actions to do that. We look at the monitoring and evaluation and reporting. I think here the SACAP can play a very major role in taking up this role and then see this how each country is performing and where they would like to help, where they can have the support and the countries can help and achieve this goal by 2030. And to do this one, we also in the process of developing some indicators. Some of the key indicators I have just highlighted here. The amount of nitrogen pollution we have to come up, the amount of waste each country we are producing, and then a component of the emissions and the nitrogen use efficiency, whether using, there are many technologies is coming up, so we can see how we can also reduce the nitrogen use efficiency. In terms of finance, to do that, everything is already Mark Sutton has pointed out the nuclear finance. We look at the national funds, the economic instruments like the taxes nowadays. For everything, there is a climate tax. We look at the taxes, the fees and debt funds for the natural farms, particularly from these wetlands and conservation, and private sector investment, market-based solutions, and also bank investment and external funding. The international funding agencies are also ready to fund this type of a coordinated activity. And finally, what the functions of the SACAP will be: the resource mobilization, monitoring, the evaluation and reporting, and the capacity building, because this is one of the huge sector which people would like to understand the integrated way of looking at the nitrogen management, and also knowledge exchange and best practices. There are many countries, many best practices are there, and you see how this can be exchanged within at least the South Asia region, and how this can be moved forward. With this, I will thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Professor Ramesh. Going to hand over now, without further ado, to Dr. Tariq Aziz from the Agricultural University of
Her Excellency, Mr. Rakaya Katon, Director General SACIP, the Secretary, Minister for Environment, Sri Lanka, Professor Sutton, Professor Ramesh, my colleague from Maldives, and dignitaries and invited delegates from Asia Pacific. Very warm good evening. And I'm also thankful to the Ministry of Sri Lanka who invited us to discuss on nitrogen, what are the key actions. And I must say thanks to Mark and to Ramesh who made my presentation very easy, because otherwise I have to let you know that what is nitrogen, why it is important, avoids the pollution. So the mark has, I think now the whole audience know why nitrogen is important and what is going on. And as I would, you can say, comment, and I would appreciate the efforts from Sri Lanka, the government of Sri Lanka, particularly the global campaign launched by the Sri Lanka, and the second resolution, which was, as discussed by the Minister and the Secretary, that the second resolution was led by the Sri Lanka. So coming to South Asia, as Professor said, that South Asia is a leader or a champion for the nitrogen management, sustainable nitrogen management. So on the same side, it is a hotspot for nitrogen pollution. And we have two resolutions. Most of the time, the resolution draft is very boring. So I think I must say sorry before my presentation that this is the draft. This is the draft of resolution. This is the discussions, and particularly being the representative of International Nitrogen Initiative and belonging to Pakistan, it was the intention that we would follow the footsteps from Sri Lanka to table this resolution. However, the draft is with the ministry and it's in the process, and we may have certain, you can say, approvals, and then if agreed, it will be tabled in the next UNEA 6. And I think the next speaker from Ministry of Climate Change, Pakistan, may endorse this. So coming to draft, before going for any action, we must acknowledge what has already happened. So recalling Resolution 14, which was tabled by the India, and of course recalling the Resolution 2, Sustainable Nitrogen Management, which was tabled by the Sri Lanka. So some of the targets or some of the wish lists were there. So we must acknowledge that we must recall these action lists, or you can say the targets. So we need to welcome the report of the Executive Director. And we must acknowledge and note the emerging science, because there are a lot of advancements in the nitrogen science as well, and overall the policy developments and the agreements. And we must recall this one. And welcoming the report of Executive Director on progress in implementation both of these resolutions, including through the working group of nitrogen. And as Mark has said, about 78 member states are part of this nitrogen working group. So which has analyzed options for intergovernmental coordination of nitrogen policies and the needs for sustainable nitrogen management action plans with support of the Global Partnership on Nutrient Management and the Global Wastewater Initiative. And agreeing that a renewed plan for action is needed after UNEA 6 to set up the priorities for sustainable nitrogen management in the period from 2024 to 2026 on the pathway towards the 2030 target, the date of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we have only about 6 years to work on. So welcoming the emerging science and policy messages from the first International Nitrogen Assessment Report, which is supposed to be displayed or presented in the UNEA 6, and it is a side project funded by the JEF of International Nitrogen Management Systems, and Mark Sutton is the director for this. So taking special note of the estimated economic value of the wasted nitrogen resources lost to the environment, which is estimated about $600 billion annually. So if we reduce half, it means we are saving $300 billion, which can be supplied to any other ministry or any other health actions or the economic actions. So noting with concern the key messages from the Science Assessment Panel of Montreal Protocol, that global nitrous oxide emissions increases have been accelerating over the last 2 decades. So while noting that N2O control is not addressed in the agreement. So welcoming then Agreement of Montreal Biodiversity Framework, where Target 7 particularly builds on Colombo Declaration, which was tabled or which was shown by the Sri Lanka, to reduce pollution risk and negative impact of pollution from all sources by 2030 to levels that are not harmful to biodiversity and ecosystem function and the services, considering cumulative effects. And welcoming the work of Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution, which has published the guidance document on integrated sustainable nitrogen management and finalized review of the Gothenburg Protocol, and identifying the need for further efforts to reduce air pollution from nitrogen and their effects on human health and ecosystems. So, noting with the concern that tripling of nitrogen fertilizer prices, particularly during 2023, which can have a significant effect on food security. In recent years, linked to global instability, providing an economic threat to farmers, governments, and the public that contributes to the cost of living crisis and strengthens the motivation to reduce nitrogen waste and increase resilience through sustainable nitrogen management. And also welcoming the global science and technological innovation that is utilizing the ammonia as a nitrogen-based fuel. As a part of global decarbonization, this is very welcoming, but it has certain environmental risks or you can say the assessments to more than quadruple global anthropogenic flows of the nitrogen, creating major new sources of ammonia pollution, while leading to an expected increases in the nitrogen prices because ammonia will be used in the fuel. So there is a comparison between either ammonia will be used for the fuel or for the fertilizer. So this was the welcoming or acknowledging the previous or the advancements in the science. So we would like to invite member states to share information of their actions to reduce nitrogen waste by 2030, which might have been taken. Some of the countries have already started. So we want that member states share information on our existing actions to reduce nitrogen waste by 2030, including share information on their nitrogen policies, highlighting the linkages between different issues, including waste of reactive nitrogen resources, economic policies, and also. And to coordinate in harmonization of the approaches of reporting sustainable nitrogen management plans, and to cooperate in the development of agreed metrics for the assessment of nitrogen waste and nitrogen pollution. So these are some of the actions which we want to invite member states to take, and to agree that there is a need to improve coordination and cooperation between the multiple intergovernmental processes related to nitrogen, recognizing that no single multilateral agreement has the mandate to link all nitrogen threats and opportunities while respecting the autonomy of each multilateral agreements. And also invite member states to cooperate with the executive director in furthering activities of the nitrogen working group, including to develop the draft terms of reference for an intergovernmental nitrogen coordination mechanism that promotes cooperation between member states, conventions, and other multilateral agreements, and to nominate focal points to join the United Nations Environment Programme Working Group on nitrogen. And it's very encouraging that 78 countries have already joined this nitrogen working group. So next on, calls on the executive director to prepare a roadmap for the activities by the UNEP Working Group on Nitrogen towards the establishment of this intergovernmental nitrogen coordination mechanism for presenting an agreement by the member states by in 165th meeting of the Committee of Permanent Representatives, and to prepare a template for harmonized reporting of the sustainable nitrogen management action plans by the member states, drawing on information from the member states, multilateral environmental agreements, the scientific community, and others through the nitrogen working group, and to engage with the relevant development partners to characterize the concept of nitrofinance, which is very much needed, particularly for the South Asia, as an emerging part of green finance taxonomies as a basis to mobilize investment in reducing nitrogen waste and promote circularity, including a better understanding of necessary capital investment and opportunities for economic return and environmental benefits. And also to report on progress in reducing nitrogen waste on the pathway to 2030. Only the 6 years are there. Drawing on emerging consensus among member states and across multilateral environmental agreements concerning variant metrics, base years, and the other relevant indicators. And to conduct further analysis of the implications of future developments in the nitrogen as an energy carrier like the ammonia in relation to environmental pollution, nitrogen price, and possible implications for the accelerating action on the sustainable nitrogen management. So this is the draft, and it is open, and we have already shared with the member states of the South Asia, and it's in process for discussion with the ministry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we're going to look towards reactions now, and that reactions start off with from the Ministry of Climate Change of Pakistan, and I'm hoping that we have somebody online able to speak to us via Zoom, and I'm asking the technical colleagues if they are able to put our colleague in from the Ministry of Climate Change in Pakistan.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Thank you. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Mazhar Hayat, and I am working as Deputy Secretary at Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination, Pakistan. First of all, I thank you very much to His Excellency Minister Nasir Ahmed and Dr. Jay Singha, Secretary of Ministry of Environment, Professor Mark, and DG SAKIB, Ms. Rakaya Katon, and the team of SAKIB, South Asia Nitrogen Hub, and International Nitrogen Initiative. From Pakistan's perspective, nitrogen is very important for South Asia in general, and for Pakistan in particular. And to address the sustainable use of nitrogen is very important for all of us in Pakistan and this region. Let me share a few slides with are my slides available on the screen now?
I think they're just about there. Let's wait a second. It looks like something is about to come through, and it's now there. If you want to put it on full screen mode, we can see it coming.
I hope it is now full screen.
Takes a little time. I think we saw you press the button. So maybe you press it again. But we can see your slide very clearly. But it's not going full screen. I think it's very clear. We suggest you move ahead with the slides as they are. We can see them well.
Okay, that's great. Pakistan is one of the big countries with special reference to its population, that is 440 million. And we have diversity of landscape, but our GHG emissions are less than 1% as compared to the global emissions. But in the pictures, you can see the Pakistan last year met with a very huge flood that caused a lot of destruction to the economy, to our people, to our non-economic losses in terms of heritage, etc. So with this backdrop, Pakistan considers...
Dr. Mazhar, we are still on your first slide, so we're not seeing the slides advancing at the moment. Now we see the third slide. Key policy and legal framework, we see.
Yeah. This was the last second, and this is the third. Okay. So Pakistan is making a lot of efforts to address the phenomenon of climate change and its impact in Pakistan. Over the period of time, we have come up with a lot of policy and legal framework. And you can see here we have climate change policy, clean air policy, policies related to water. We updated our nationally determined contribution back in 2021, and we also have legislated Climate Change Act electric vehicle policy, and renewable energy policy. These are the few policies which have direct relation with the nitrogen. Either the nitrogen is coming from industrial sector, from agriculture sector, from infrastructure or urban sector, whatever is there, that is polluting Pakistan's air and also causing a lot of input in national greenhouse gas with reference to its inventory. So we see that nitrogen is very important. The question is why nitrogen is important? Because nitrogen is everywhere. You see in each and every aspect of life, even in air, the concentration of nitrogen is 78%. But on the other hand, what I said that nitrogen is everywhere, it means it covers all the SDGs almost, from sustainable consumption, industrialization, from SDG 7, from SDG 13. So each and every SDG is covered by the nitrogen. And similarly, if we see another aspect of the international multilateral agreements, if we talk about the nitrous oxide and other related compounds of the nitrogen, they are having high GWP. So it is covered under the UNFCCC on one side, Montreal Protocol on the other side, and Biological Diversity Framework, Montreal, which was under the CBD, and almost all of the conventions are directly linked with the nitrogen. So nitrogen is very important as a whole. We also see that in the diagram on the right side, the map diagram, that nitrogen is important.
Dr. Azhar, on slide 3, we need to go to the next slide to see the map. Thank you.
Okay, now it is visible?
Yes, we see the map and the graph.
Okay. In the map, we see that nitrogen is very important for the South Asia in particular, because consumption here is on the very much higher side as per the global practices. From specific reference to Pakistan, we see that over the period of time, total nitrogen input has gone many folds from 1960 to 2010. So that's why nitrogen is very important for Pakistan and for South Asia also. So these are nitrogen input data on Pakistan. We see that from 1961 to 2013, 10-fold increase in application of the cropland during the last 5 decades. So this is alarming. And manure application has gone down, and synthetic fertilizer, the main reason, gone from 16 to 68%. And efficiency, on the other hand, is altogether different case. We see that efficiency has gone down a lot, and nitrogen use efficiency regarding total nitrogen input, you can see in the red line going steep up. So this is the major concern for the Pakistan to have a look on this and to have national plans and strategies for sustainable nitrogen consumption in the country. So this is another slide which tells us that nitrogen use efficiency in 60s was 58%, and the surplus was 171 gigagrams. But we see that nitrogen use efficiency from 2009 to 2013 has gone down by 23% only. And you can see that 77% is the surplus. So it's again an alarming figure for Pakistan in particular. So gaseous nitrogen losses, you can have a look on this slide. So losses are on very much higher side over the period of time. And these are the sectoral contributions with reference to nitrogen oxide emission by main sectors in Pakistan. We see that building sector and agriculture sectors are at the top. And similarly, power industry, transport, transport is one of the main together with the agriculture. And a lot of nitrogen comes out of the industrial combustions also. So nitrogen emissions in Pakistan, ammonia is the most abundant compound back in 2015 data, and closely by nitrogen oxide. So emissions of ammonia are major concern, and then nitrous oxides have increased in Pakistan over the period from 1970 to 2015. And definitely this is posing a great threat for air pollution as well as the global warming. So a rise of around 58% in NOx emission was recorded back in 2000 and 2015. So a 42% increase in ammonia emissions since 2000, and then agriculture contributes to all three nitrogen compounds, and its major emission sources ammonia, as I already mentioned, then nitrous oxide emissions by 84 to 85%. And then agriculture contributes 10% of the overall nitrogen oxides emissions. The second one is transport, and that contributes to overall 62% increase from 2002 to 2015, contributing 41% to overall NOx emission in 2015. So we see that a developing country like Pakistan cannot bear this loss and cannot bear the underlying losses with reference to health, with reference to challenges to environment, ecosystems, and water resources, and climate change as a whole. So building sector has shown consistent growth in its nitrogen-based emissions, similar case like ammonia, and then nitrous oxide emissions by industries also grew by around 30 to 49%. These emissions trend highlight that current policy efforts have so far not been able to stabilize or reduce nitrogen emissions. So this is the point of consideration. So Pakistan, as I mentioned in my earlier slides, is making a lot of efforts that how to overcome these issues associated with the sustainable use of nitrogen and increasing efficiency, reducing overall input of the nitrogen compounds. Pakistan is involved in a number of initiatives for improvement of environmental quality. A Male meeting under the SAQIP was held back in 2017, and that was convened by the then Director General, who was from Pakistan, and draft concept was discussed for resolution during the meeting. So Pakistan was also included in the member states who adopted the Colombo Declaration in 2019, and Pakistan also supported second resolution, which was tabled by Sri Lanka in June 5. Pakistan hosted World Environment Day back in 2021 with the theme of ecosystem restoration with a holistic approach, whole of the society approach. And then there have been certain capacity building initiatives in collaboration with United Nations Environment Program, South Asian Nitrogen Hub, and University of Agriculture here in Pakistan. So these are some glimpses from the capacity building initiatives. With this, thank you very much. And future plans I missed to discuss. Pakistan, as mentioned by Dr. Tariq, Pakistan has initiated a discussion on draft South Asia roadmap developed by the SAQIP and South Asian Nitrogen Hub. And we had a consultative workshop last month on this in collaboration with University of Agriculture, Faisalabad, and International Nitrogen Initiative and South Asian Nitrogen Hub. And then Pakistan is also processing its nomination for focal point to UNEP Nitrogen Working Group. And then, as mentioned by Dr. Tariq previously, the discussion on tabling the third resolution on sustainable nitrogen management is under discussion on the government side here in Pakistan. this draft is mainly we are attempting to make it more national action plan focused and also technology transfer focused, and to come up with innovative and additional finances. As I mentioned earlier, that nitrogen is such an important dimension that it covers all the multilateral environmental agreements. So we can mobilize even the finances under the overall umbrella of all these conventions and protocols, including the Green Climate Fund, Global Environment Facility, and like that one, and the newly established fund under the Kunming Montreal Protocol regarding diversity under the GEF. And then we are revisiting policies to include sustainable nitrogen management at country level. And then we have intentions to establish focused expert national groups and committees. Thank you very much with this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hazza, and it was great to be able to see your slides, and indeed very worrying to see how nitrogen flows have been changing. We congratulate you particularly on the nitrogen assessment done in Pakistan, which led to so much data here. And I know I should also thank your colleague, Dr. Aziz, who's with us here in the room. So thank you for that. We're going to hand over now to Ms. Nafha Abbas from the Maldives Ministry of Environment.
Good evening, distinguished guests, presenters, and attendees. I'm Nafha Abbas, a Chemicals Management Officer from the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, and Technology of Maldives. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will very briefly go over the priorities from our country for the sustainable management of nitrogen. So in the Maldives, targeted research and monitoring on nitrogen has recently started with the efforts of the Maldives National University with the help of the South Asian Nitrogen Hub. However, the data gap is still quite significant in terms of nitrogen emissions and losses in the country in all the sectors, in particular the agricultural sector. So this underscores the need for continuation and expansion of the monitoring activities that are currently being conducted. And as we aim to develop a national action plan on nitrogen in the near future, it is vital to have a strong baseline to identify the target sectors, issues, and the feasibility of potential actions as well. It is also important to consider the context of the country, which is in many ways quite different from other South Asian countries. The recently published National Nitrogen Policy Report, which was formulated with the collaborative efforts between the National University and the South Asian Nitrogen Hub, gave an overview of some target sectors and policy gaps. For example, transport, wastewaters, energy, and industry sectors were reported as primary sectors within the country compared to agriculture in the other countries in the region. Furthermore, nitrous oxides and oxides of nitrogen in particular were identified as needing focus. Policies specifically targeting nitrogen are lacking in all sectors, especially the transport sector. The report also highlighted the necessity of having policies that address multiple sectors, sinks, and policy instruments. Additionally, the report recommended adopting existing policies and measures to address nitrogen explicitly. There is also a pressing need for more awareness to be raised on nitrogen in general, but also a need for targeted efforts for different stakeholders. One group in particular, farmers, have already expressed a need for updated guidelines and manuals in the local language. It is also important to have concrete data from within the country to be presented to stakeholders and policymakers in order to incentivize and justify action on the issue. All of the aforementioned measures will require strong collaboration from different ministries, institutions, and stakeholders. Formalization of this partnership and collaboration process is also worth exploring in order to increase incentives and accountability. It is also important to look at current actions and projects under different institutions that are directly or indirectly addressing nitrogen, such as within the ministry, we are undertaking efforts to strengthen air quality monitoring, and we also have projects targeting the electrification of the transport sector, as well as a project to revise the fuel quality and vessels and vehicles emission standards. all of which could directly impact the nitrogen pollution issue in the country. Supporting and building up from these existing actions could help more efficiently produce measurable positive results. In the future, we hope to continue to support and lead actions on addressing the often neglected issue of nitrogen within the Maldives, with collaboration of the universities and organizations such as the South Asian Nitrogen Hub, as well as our neighboring countries. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Afa. Now, we are running a little late, so we're not going to have discussion too long and just take a few questions. We hope you have a couple ready to hand from what exciting things you've seen so far, and then we will move swiftly to the close from Ms. Priyankri Alexander from SACEP. So let's, I think we will have a microphone available. If you have a question, if you think this is impossible, if you think you've not grasped nitrogen yet, and you have the question you're uncertain about, if you're uncertain, it means that 20 other people are also uncertain. So don't be embarrassed to ask your question. So let's see who would like to start the comments. So Mr. Budi, Dr. Budi, I thought so too. We know each other. So Dr. Budi, can you give a microphone to him, please?
Hello, good evening. I'm Buddhi Marambe. I'm a professor attached to Faculty of Agriculture at Peradeniya, the very location you have the nitrogen conference right now. And I was a senior author of the Sustainable Nitrogen Management book that Minister of Environment produced in 2019 with respect to the resolution that you had. One question that I want to ask was regarding the waste, the 20% or 80% waste. How was it calculated? Was it based on a crop or was it based on a barren land? If it's based on a crop, what is the amount of nitrogen that have been absorbed by the crop?
I think we should answer this question on two scales. I will make a first answer, then I'm going to pass over to Dr. Tariq Aziz to look at two different scales. So the first scale was the global scale, and we looked at the nitrogen budget for the whole world in a report called Our Nutrient World, produced for the United Nations Environment Programme. So we looked at all the nitrogen compounds that are being produced, and then we looked at actually how much gets into food and other uses, particularly livestock products and crop products. And if we look at the nitrogen at a global scale of how much gets there compared to how much we've made, we got around 20%. But that's, of course, a big global view. And what was very interesting was to see the graphs from Dr. Azhar with, interestingly, on a crop scale, some quite low numbers. And I think this is where I pass over to look at the crop scale to Dr. Aziz.
So for the crop scale, particularly when discussing the Pakistan's perspective, the current nitrogen use efficiency is about 27 to 30%, which was 53%. But most of the cases, I think if you see for the global, it's around 50% for the crop sectors. So 20% is from field to the fork. It's the whole story, livestock sector, crop sector, anything. It's 20%. But when you discuss only for the crop sectors, it may vary among country to country. For Pakistan, it's currently about 30%.
So this, sorry, can I ask a follow-up question? This 30% is from the farm to fork?
No, only the crop sector.
I see. So the production component only.
So could I follow up your point, Dr. Budi? So if you said 30% for just the crop, and if you went to the full chain in Pakistan, do you have an estimate yet?
It's not yet.
Yet to be calculated, but it will be a smaller number. Yeah, very good. Let's see if we have a follow-up question from Dr. Budi. This is your opportunity to ask the embarrassing question that you said, I don't understand this about nitrogen, because you can have the answer free of charge with food. Okay, oh yes, there's a hand over there. So a lady with a hand up, thank you so much.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I'm Sakura Takahashi, from Children and Youth Major Group from Japan, and I'm from Japan. So Japan is don't prioritize the nitrogen management. So I first heard about the sustainable nitrogen management. So I'm really curious about why South Asia is proactively working in the sustainable nitrogen management, and what is important to encourage countries in other regions to participate in the nitrogen management and promoting in different areas.
Thank you. I think we should pass to some of our South Asia colleagues for that. Maybe Professor Ramesh, you'd like to go first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for a very interesting question. Why South Asia? The nitrogen issue is a global issue, not only for the South Asia. What we understand from our research, from our emission results, the South Asia is an hotspot in terms of the emissions. When you look at the NOx emission, when you look at the nitrous oxide emissions, the concentrations are much higher when compared to the other parts of the region. So we have taken the South Asia region as a research project and we are looking at it. And after the INEA resolution, the UNEP has invited the member countries to have a global initiative on the nitrogen working group. In the last 1 year, I think 78 countries. Last week we had a meeting at Nairobi, and 78 countries participated in the working group, looking at how the national action plan. Each country has an action plan for nitrogen, and how the national action plan can be prepared, how this can be monitored over a period of time, and we have to report back to the INEA 6 next year. So this is a global problem. And India, because South Asia being a place where we are here, and we have also having higher emission, we are looking at in the much more seriously this issue, and then also bring it to the rest of the world that this issue has to be handled or tackled, because it's a very complex issue, which is not easy to just understand. You just do one sector on agriculture, he will be talking about agriculture, I'll be, as an ocean scientist, I'll be looking at our coastal zone, where we have a huge problem of eutrophication. The amount of nutrient pollution which is going into the ocean, we have a huge amount of nitrogen pollution, which causes the fish kills, which have a lot of algal blooms are happening, and we do have the dead zones. These dead zones are not only happening in these countries, it is happening even in the developed world. For example, look at the Gulf of Mexico, where the entire Mississippi River basin, where it goes to the Mississippi Delta, there is a huge amount of dead zone, which they are trying to look at the nitrogen pollution. How do you make it, the dead zones make it alive? I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank
so in
you.
addition,
please go ahead.
Yeah, in addition, why South Asia? South Asia has a population of 1.9, you can say, million people. About billion people, sorry, 1.9 billion people. So about 25% of the population living just on about 4.8% of the landmass. So the ecosystem of the South Asia is already under severe pressure. And secondly, if you see the nitrogen use, it has been increased significantly from 1960 to 2013 or 15, and it's increasing. But when you compare it among countries, the major increase has been observed in the Asia, not in the Europe or any other country. So we are more concerned that our environment is degrading. We have to produce more and more food because in the next, I think, 2050, about 50% of the population from South Asia will be urban population. So urbanization is a great challenge as well. It's opportunity as well, but it has a lot of other challenges. So we are more concerned. We need to use sustainably the nitrogen fertilizers, and we have to reduce the nitrogen emissions as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we take maybe one more question, and then we're going to wrap up shortly because we're over time. But to Dr. Gauthami.
So just not a question to add to my colleagues. So that forestry related research, what we are doing in South Asia. So the heart of South Asia is our Himalayan region. So the biodiversity loss because of the nitrogen pollution is kind of irreversible at the moment. So if we continue like this way, so we don't know where we are going to end up in another 50 to 100 years. So that is why South Asia was chosen, because it is India, Sri Lanka, most of us are biodiversity hotspots in the world. So protecting, saving it for future generations, it is very important. We are at one of the most alarming times of the globe now.
Thank you so much. Now, I think we're going to start to wrap up now. The food is out there. I just want to say a couple of words. Remember, this is 4 years now since the Colombo Declaration was signed. 24th of October. I'm looking at Ms. Deepa Leonaga from the Prime Minister's office. It's a pleasure to have you here. And of course, we worked so hard together on that Colombo Declaration. We were so happy that 30 countries joined, 14 countries signed that Colombo Declaration. And of course, that then was followed up by a second resolution, where 92 countries is universally adopted. This is really to celebrate that achievement. And if you ask, whatever happened to the Colombo Declaration is moving forward. The whole world is moving now, and nitrogen we're waking up to grasp this nitrogen challenge, not just South Asia, but the rest of the world. And with, I think this microphone is a bit funny, but pass over now to Ms. Priyankri Alexander to close this session.
Thank you, Professor Bank. Esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this impactful gathering to a close, I want to express our profound appreciation for the distinguished individuals and institutions that have played a crucial role in making today's event both meaningful and significant. Firstly, my heartfelt gratitude to the Honorable Nasir Ahmed, Minister of Environment, Government of Sri Lanka, and Dr. Anil Jaisinghe, Secretary of the Ministry of Environment, Government of Sri Lanka, for gracing us with your presence and sharing invaluable insights. Your leadership is pivotal in steering sustainable initiatives within our region. A special acknowledgement to Professor Ramesh Ramachandran, representing the National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management, Government of India. Your expertise has significantly enriched our discussion, particularly in shaping the draft South Asia Roadmap for Sustainable Nitrogen Management, which SAKEP is expecting to adopt at the upcoming Governing Council of SAKEP in Bhutan next year. And to Dr. Tariq Aziz from the Agriculture University of Faisalabad for valuable insights into the key elements of draft UNEA 6 nitrogen resolution. On behalf of today's event organizers, I also extend my thanks to the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination, Government of Pakistan, and the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India, for their commitment to environmental stewardship in addressing regional challenges. And also to Ms. Nafia Abbas for representing the Ministry of Environment, Maldives, for engagement in today's event. A heartfelt appreciation also goes to our funding partners, UKRI for SANECH and support through INMS from JEF and UDEP. Professor Mark Sutton, your dedication has been the driving force behind the success of initiatives for sustainable nitrogen management, and thank you for being the rock. Last but not least, a warm appreciation for the newly appointed Director General of SAKEP, Ms. Rakaya Katon, for her leadership at SAKEP. Finally, I would like to thank our colleagues at the Ministry of Environment, Government of Sri Lanka. Without your dedication and meticulous planning, today's gathering would not have been possible. Thank you. Let us now enjoy some moments of networking and refreshments. Thank you.